Okay. I'm hoping that that it's a lot less lag because of things that I just made. Yeah. Nope. Well, nobody's in yet, but just to give you I'm working on flint knapping tonight, working on this piece that I started yesterday. And I'm just doing what's called pressure flaking with this long tool called an ishi stick, named after a famous Native American who was the last of his tribe, last of the Yahi Indians. And he was the one who showed a lot of people this method. I just created a bit of a problem for myself right there. Had a very strange break. Trying to show you that. Right here. Right there. It just broke in a very funny way right there, which is going to cause me problems going forward. So I'm going to have to think about how to fix that. It's going to involve making it smaller for sure. And it might not be the first thing I do. That is both strange and unfortunate. Hey, Lucas. Yeah, and spina. Yeah, arrowhead or knife or spearhead. Hey, Cod Beast, what's up? Hey, Gino. If anybody's returning from one of the other days, I'm hoping this connection is a lot better, a lot more noticeable. Just going to be doing some flint knapping tonight. Yeah, I've made them with obsidian. I don't have a big piece of obsidian with me right here, but here's a small piece. I don't think I have. Oh yeah, here's a small piece of a small obsidian arrowhead. I've got some bigger pieces inside. I'm out in my workshop right here, but obsidian's great. This is dacite, so it's like obsidian. Obsidian is volcanic glass, and this is not technically glass. It has similar properties. So in terms of the tool itself and spina, yeah, the flakes that come off are crazy sharp. So just like the waste flakes, these are straight up sharp, real sharp. The tools are kind of more like a serrated knife, so that here's a cut that I made with this yesterday, a demo. It's more like a saw than a knife. So it works. It isn't like, even though I might call this a knife, you don't really use it the way we might use a steel knife now. It's more like a rough saw. This is just kind of fat, so I'm going to go back to doing a little bit of percussion. Thin it out. Well, that took out a big old chunk that I didn't want to take out. Look at that. Let's see, I need to give you a background where you can see that. That is where that weird break was. I think there must have been some kind of defect in the stone, because that is just bizarre. That's not typical. So, hey, nothing left to do now but make the whole thing narrower to get rid of this weird, big, chunky thing. Though, I suppose in like a prehistoric text, something like this is still useful. It'd be like a shaft scraper. So if you had a piece of wood and it fits right in there, and you could use it to smooth out shafts. It's actually working really well for that. So, totally viable tool. Honestly, though, all what I was trying to do. Just had a weird break. So I'm going to narrow the entire piece to try to salvage it, get rid of that very crazy break. Remember to abrade. Nice. Okay. Yeah, this is coming along. Hopefully we'll be able to sort it out. See where the big chip was, and I've taken some of this down just to sort of, work down the spot so at least the whole edge is straight. Yeah, I think we'll be able to salvage this and still have some pretty nice proportions. I might do work on this for just kind of more fun to watch. Okay, what do I need to do here? Hit it right on that edge if I can do it. Right? Nope. Yep, right there. Nice big for the center. There's another. That's good. Braid again. Well, apparently there's only one of you who have stuck with me. How's the connection? Is it choppy or is this pretty smooth? Nice. So I'm actually dealing with that big, weird break that I had right there by taking all the rest of the surface down, bring this edge back to a straight edge. I'm gonna work on the other side a little bit just to thin it out. Oh yeah. Very good. One more. Cool. Had a turd? No, my friend. No, RR. It's not a turd. This is a rock called dacite. What's up, No Sage? How are ya? I'm making either a arrowhead, a spearhead, a knife. At this point, it could be any of them. I'll go a little further and we'll sort of see what happens. turd? What are you talking about, man? Crazy. You're crazy. Okay. Yes. Yeah, that is truth. That would be a bad situation. All right. You thought it was a turd. Okay. Just had one on my lap. You know, like you do. Sometimes you got a turd on your lap. Do you? No, I hope not. Oh, the audio cut out. It's not obsidian. It's like obsidian. This is called dacite. I've got a chunk of obsidian right here. That's obsidian. You see how it's even shinier? There's a little arrowhead from obsidian. If I can show you the light a little bit. So obsidian is even more brittle. I'll take a flake off the obsidian for you, just for fun. This isn't a very big chunk, but I can at least make here. Boom. Very crumbly. Let's see. Find a spot that won't much. There we go. So there's this piece of obsidian came off from right there. Yes, obsidian is insanely sharp. When a flake comes off, I mean, to call it razor sharp is inaccurate because razors aren't even close to that sharp. A piece of obsidian can be many times sharper than a piece of surgical steel, like a scalpel. Obsidian is fantastically sharp when you get a nice flake of it. It's so sharp that they use it to do eye surgery. It makes such a fine cut that it doesn't damage the rest of the eye. And then when they're done, it heals up beautifully, like no scar, because it's such an incredibly fine cut. And if you happen to be doing this and accidentally cut yourself with obsidian, often you don't feel it. So the only way you know that you've cut yourself is you're looking down and you're working, and all of a sudden you see blood, like on the pad or something. You're like, well, what? And you realize a little tiny cut. Crazy sharp. No, you do not walk barefoot in here. And in fact, I tuck my pants into my boots so that flakes can't fall into my boots. The other thing is you never do this with your bare hand. You can stand up and like shake, or if I have flakes on here, I flip this off. I didn't say that right, but you know, yeah, it's a little dangerous because the pieces are super sharp. I pretty much get cut every time I do it. That's why I'm wearing a glove on this hand, because this is more likely to be the one that runs into, you know, if I knock a flake off here as I'm holding it like this, that flake is often, yeah, right there. So I just knocked that flake off, and I ended up catching it in the hand that has the glove. Here, let me try and show you that flake that came off. Just got to get it back into position. It's cool how they fit right back into where they came from. Okay, so the flake is right there, and boop. So, and that's super sharp. Yeah, I don't know how they manufacture the blades for surgery, the obsidian blades for surgery. I'm guessing you're right that there's some sort of industrial process, but I don't know. Yeah, you're right. I do have some blood on my fourth finger. I don't even know how I did that. As I said, pretty much every time get a bit of something. But eye protection, super important. Tuck your pants into your boots. Have some sort of pad. A glove if you can tolerate it. And the other thing is, you should be doing this in a well-ventilated area if you practice a lot. The dust that comes off from this is silica dust. And if you do this in a ventilated area for a long time, you can develop silicosis, which is, you know, an awful thing, not something you want. So those are the things: eye protection, hand protection, good ventilation. Just know you're assuming some risk if you do it at all. There's just no getting around it. There isn't an entirely safe way to go about doing this. So, dacite. It's not as brittle as obsidian. There's always a trade-off depending on the material you use. This is dacite, this is Georgetown chert, and this is obsidian. So obsidian is the most brittle. It's the easy break with the hammer, right? So it's kind of easy to work with. Chert is quite tough, and this is somewhere, and the dacite is somewhere in the middle. But the trade-off is, as your piece starts to get this way, it gets easier and easier to accidentally break it in half. So it's a compromise. The obsidian is going to be the easiest to work with initially, but as it gets thinner, it's going to get riskier and riskier every time you make a hit, and eventually you could break it in half. That's actually why I kind of prefer working with this gray Georgetown chert, because it's a little bit more forgiving as the piece gets thinner. But I just happen to be practicing with some dacite that I have. No, it's not my favorite choice. Obsidian. Yeah. Other places use obsidian. There's a lot in the northwest of North America as well. But yeah, it was very common in Central America, South America. You know, the Aztecs used it for these like giant blades. So it's a great material. But yeah, other places use it too. Anywhere where you had the right geologic activity to create volcanic glass, our people used obsidian. And I'm glad you learned something, whoever made that comment. Hey, I'm glad. That's kind of the goal. You know, I'm going to be practicing anyway, and if I can pass along a little bit of knowledge to someone, then that's even better. And thank you. I'm glad to hear I'm a good explainer. This is what's called an ishi stick. It's used for pressure flaking. So instead of hitting the piece, I'm going to put right on the end and then press into it and then squeeze together with my legs until I push a flake off. Click. Done. And there's the little flake that came off. Very controlled way to do it when the piece starts to get thinner. Oh, you're talking about Game of Thrones. Yeah, dragon glass, right? Yeah, I am familiar with that. I'm not familiar with much in the way of pop culture, but I did watch Game of Thrones, and I did appreciate the role that obsidian had in that. That was awesome. Asked about the one show I probably know about. What's the difference between pressing and hitting? Control is their difference. The level of force is different. So if I absolutely must take off a big flake, well then using one of the big boppers and hitting it is going to be able to provide a lot more force than I can with just pressure. But it's much more controlled. So, you know, because when I'm hitting with a bopper, I need to, like, by eye, say, I'm going to hit right, and then I've got to do it perfectly. Whereas this point, I can just place it exactly where I want it. So that's the big difference. Percussion can apply more force, but pressure can apply force exactly where you want it. So those are the key differences. And so usually you move from percussion flaking to pressure flaking. Sometimes you move back and forth like I just did, but it's more common to sort of do pressure later in the process. Let's see here. Yeah, and so that control does mitigate, doesn't eliminate, mitigates the risk of breaking the piece. You can still break it doing pressure flaking. Believe me, I have broken many that way. I will probably break many more that way. A big part of this is preparing the stone for whatever it is you're going to do next. These little tiny chips that I'm taking off right now aren't really about taking off material. It's about changing the height of the edge so that when I flip it over, the edge is low on the piece. And that will allow me to push longer flakes off. So I've got it this way, and I'm taking little come off the bottom. And this is all just preparing for the next thing. It kind of is. I mean, like I wasn't an Eagle Scout, but I like survival skills, primitive skills, ancestral skills, different anthropology topics. And so flint knapping, making stone tools, falls into all of them. While it's not really, it kind of is. Friction fires. I love making friction fires. I've got videos on my channel about that, like the bamboo fire saw, the bow drill. So check those out. Please hop over to my channel or hit subscribe now. Please, thank you. It would mean a lot to me. I'm just kind of getting up to speed with YouTube, and as I'm sure most of you know, when you first start out, it's a bit of a slow road. So I just took those little chips off. So now when I flip it over, if we look down the center, now this line is below the center. Okay? I need that. Now when I either hit or press, the flakes will be longer. And I need them to be long so that the piece is thinner. If I just hit right now, or if I didn't do that preparation step, the flakes would be very short. They'd end quickly, and I'd end up with this big fat spine down the middle. Do the properties of the stone limit the shapes of things you can make because of the way it fractures, etc.? Yeah, exactly. For the most part, let's do a little picture here. So any of these stones that are high silica content with very fine crystals, they break in way. I wonder, have you ever, not that you would, but anyone that you know ever shot a window with a BB, like a BB gun? If you look closely, or maybe you've gotten a rock that's come up and hit the windshield of your car. Hey, Dominique. Well, if you observe closely either the BB rock, you'll see it hits here, and then it makes a pyramid shape, a cone. It knocks out a cone from the other side. So hits here, and then like a little cone shape pops out. So that's how force is applied to this type of material. Now, what I'm doing, it's same thing. If I were to hit, if I was able to hit perfectly down here, a cone would pop out. That's unlikely to really work. So what I'm doing is I'm going to hit an edge here, and you can picture a cone spreading out. I want a cone spreading out. But out here, there's no rock. Nothing for it to break. But this way, there is rock. And so what we'll get is just the portion of the cone force that is that occupies the same area as the stone. So I'll do it for you right now. I'll hit that spot. I hit right here, and then it knocked out that, which, if you can picture, is part of the cone. I'm sorry, the flake didn't really hold together. It's just a crumbled mass on my pad there. So, let me just look at your... I have no idea what people are talking about, but I love people who can veil for something and are skilled. Well, I'm glad to hear that. We're making stone tools today, like people have done for hundreds of thousands of years. So, in answer to your question, yeah, it limits what you can do because of the way force carries through the material. Now, people who are very, very, very good at this, and that's not me, can do a tremendous amount with pressure flaking. They can make these like crazy circular snake-like things. I mean, they're not really practical. They're more like for art. But if you're very, very good at it, you pretty creative things. But in general, they're still using the property that I just explained to you. It's still about using cone of force to fracture the rock in that way. So there really are limits to the shapes you can make based on how you can apply force to it and thus make it break. Hope that made sense. It was kind of long-winded. I assume that if someone were to grind away the stone or something like that, they get the shape they want. Yeah, that's true. And as a matter of fact, that's a really insightful point, because sometimes like a flint knapped blade that's like, I don't know, huge, right? And super, super, super thin. And it's like, how on earth did they make that without breaking it? Well, sometimes the answer is they abraded it. They ground it with probably with another stone. This is a synthetic thing, but they probably ground it shape with a stone and then followed up with some pressure flaking to make it. So that is a legitimate technique that was used historically, prehistorically, to create fancy shapes or really, really big pieces that are super thin. So absolutely true. That's a very, very clever insight there. I sometimes do it to get myself out of a problem. If I've got a really bad, I might grind it a bit to try and reduce the problem, and before I try going back to conventional tools. Yeah, looks like Native American. Yeah, exactly. It was flint knapping was widely used by the Native American people, but also all over the world. All over the world. It's almost a universal human skill, depending on how far back in time you go. But there are stone tools that are millions old. They aren't quite as sophisticated as this. They're much more crude, but they still serve the same purpose and were made more or less the same way. Yeah, it is interesting. I've never really looked into the how they make those surgical blades. I have a friend who's quite good at this, and I believe told me he had a friend who used to make them for surgeons. But I didn't ask like how. Person was a famous flint knapper, so he was very, very, very good at what I'm doing right now. But I don't know that that's what he used to make those surgical blades. I didn't ask. I could probably follow up and see if I could learn a little bit more about that. But sure, you combine techniques to get the desired result. the flaking really does an extremely sharp thing, because the force travels through, and as it starts to dissipate, the flake end is off until it's just like a few molecules thick. Flint napper, not kidnapper. Yeah, that's an important distinction. So there might not be a good way, a good mechanical alternative to actually striking or pushing a. I bet he used pressure flaking. Yeah, I bet he set up a perfect platform and then used a pressure flaker with some kind of mechanical advantage to simply push off a super, super thin, super sharp flake. That's just me speculating, but that'd be my guess. I think someone asked if this is what I was working on Friday night. It's not. I was working on this last night. It's a Knapping. Knapping. Knapping was also used to make the flints that went into flintlock muskets and rifles back in like the 1700s. I believe they used metal hammers. Yeah, no problem, Sage. No problem. Or no. Sorry. I wanted to shorten your name, I guess. All right. Let's see. Give you a little peek. Still a little chunky for my taste, so I'll take off a little bit more if I can figure out where. Oops, got to a braid. It's an important step. Good. Good. Do a little bit more right there. Okay. Since they wouldn't be probably a limited amount of use before breaking, how particular do you think ancient peoples would have been in the manufacturing of such tools, weapons? Since they would have had limited amount of use before breaking, how particular do you think ancient peoples would have been about the manufacture of such tools, weapons? All right, that's a good question. So the thing is, let's say I'm making a spear point. I do want this to have a particular size and shape so that it has a better chance of holding up to the force of being thrown and then impacting your target. So I do want to be particular about this size and shape of this. Now the thing is though, if you look at my feet, it's just covered in flakes. So a flake like this makes an excellent impromptu knife. And I don't have to change it at all. Good as it is, quick knife, make my cuts, throw it away. So it depends on the tool that you need it to do. If you need a scraper for scraping a hide or something like that, you want something that has a square edge, and you'd scrape this way. Depending on what you need the tool to do, you may need to be particular about how carefully you manufacture it. If you just need a simple cutting tool, pick up a flake, or even, maybe you've got a piece of raw material with you, you knock off a new flake, like brand new flake. I have got a knife. Very small knife, but a very sharp knife. Took me no time. Maybe it's big enough to keep for something else, but probably when I'm done with it, I just throw it away. But if you're looking for something that's got to, fly through the air, make an impact, not break right away, then you probably want to invest the time in of a particular size and shape. Yeah, everything was hard work. And also, people, they were incredibly good at this. So I'm making it look really hard. Because me, it is hard. But I know people, I've seen people firsthand, while having a discussion with someone, just chip away. They didn't tools, they didn't fuss about it, just chipping away, and they made a beautiful arrowhead. No problem. They weren't really even concentrating on it. So enough time and practice, and enough raw material to practice with, people can become very, very good at this. I am not in that category. I mean, if you're interested, you should get online and see what some people can do. It's amazing. But yes, back then, thousands of years ago, yep, everything was hard work. If you needed string, you had to twist it up by hand. If you needed a stone tool, you had to make it. If you wanted buckskin, you had to tan a hide from an animal. It's incredibly hard work. It's really hard work. But they needed to do it. And so they did it. Is that what they call it? Chippewa? I don't think so. Because they were chipping? Well, I don't know the answer to that, but I don't think so. Okay. Need to work on my symmetry a little bit, but it's coming along. A little thick up here. But I might switch over to the big piece pretty soon anyway. Pressure flaking isn't all that exciting to watch. And let me just make the bottom a little bit more symmetrical. Let's see, as Norm Macdonald pointed out, wives only cost 3 goats. I don't know. Maybe. I miss Norm Macdonald. That guy had his own style for sure. Nobody like him. Good. trying to size up where I want to take more material off. It's getting thin, so this is getting risky, but still helpful for making bigger flakes. Yeah, that was good. That took off a big fat bit up here. It was just kind of thick and chunky up there, and I didn't really like, didn't look much like a knife or. Well, folks, there it is. It happened. I told you it was risky. I told you it was risky. I'll just do one more hit in there. Boop. And that's the way a lot of my evenings end. I'm getting better. This is still big enough. This end is still big enough to make an arrowhead out of. Just more pressure flaking onto that. And this probably too. I can make an arrowhead out of that eventually, but I'm going to switch over to the big piece. But that just to give you a sense of how absolutely and perfectly normal it is for me to break things in half. Back when this was done regularly in cultures that depended on stone tools, I'm sure the kids were practicing when, you know, they probably started to try when they were like 3. I imagine the time they were like 7, they're better than I am. By the time they're 12, you know, they're like experts. And then as adults, you know, just have an intuitive feel for it. Just, you know, just excellent at it. Nice flake. Sometimes I keep these larger ones because this would be very easy to chip in a small arrowhead. Set those aside. That one wasn't all that big, but things on the bigger side I do keep. There's another. That's not too big. It's a nice big piece. Dacite. I'll work around the edges, trying to get rid of any of these 90-degree angles. Those are hard to work with. I need slanted pieces like this. So I have to get rid of these 90-degree. And the way that's is by making alternate hits. So I made a hit here. It knocked off that. Now I'll flip it over and hit here to knock off a piece under here. Yeah. Oh yeah. They knew when they had good material. And you know from archaeological evidence that good material could travel hundreds or thousands of miles. Had to be done by foot. And so it's likely that this was from one group to the next because it was valuable to all of them. So if you had a piece like this, from which, you know, a good knapper could make several good, many tools, it would get traded from group to group, person to person, and it could travel hundreds or even thousands of miles. It must have been, good material must have been quite precious. It's really neat because, you know, geologically, some stones are very distinctive geologically. And so if you find it, you know, in North Carolina or something, but it does not exist in North Carolina, it comes from Texas. And yet it's found in context, in situ, in an archaeological site that you can date via other means. You know that it's very old and that they traded it over a huge distance. It's not surprising. It's just amazing to think about, really. So these are modern knapping tools. They, a little of both. Sometimes these are plumbing fixtures. You can make your own with plumbing fixtures. I'm just looking for one right now that hasn't been modified. I got it. So you can buy like these end caps for plumbing. And some lead goes in there and then a handle goes on it. So it start off looking like this. But over time, that edge gets worn into a dome. Sometimes when you purchase them, they're ready as a dome. But that's a good segue into showing you what a traditional tool might look like. This is a piece of mule deer antler. And so this is also a bopper. And this is a much more traditional tool. But it works just the same. And of course, depending on the material, a hammerstone might be the preferred tool. So I'm using the mostly because I found that it reduces wear and tear on my elbow. If you do every night, you know, hundreds of hits every night, after a while, you can start to develop like tennis elbow or other kinds of repetitive strain injuries. So that took me out of commission for a long time. And so I spoke with a friend about it, and he said, yeah, I understand your impulse to do it with all appropriate period tools, but you switch over to these modern ones, you'll be doing your body a big favor. So that's kind of, I still use the traditional tools now and then. I like them, but just so that I can keep doing it, I mow these modern tools. Okay. Working on getting rid of that flat edge on this side. Just going back and forth, flipping it, low spot, flipping it, hitting the low spot, flipping it, hitting the low spot, until I've gone down the whole edge. So this was all of that 90-degree edge. And now you see it's this got this wavy edge. That means I can work on this edge. Anywhere there's a low spot is an opportunity for me to take a flake from below. So now I've got to do the same over here. I've got to get rid of this. And the entire perimeter will be workable. So I'll start over here where there's a bit of a slant going into the flat spot. Repent, he's coming. Well, so hit that low spot, I hit here, and that took out this big area. Now I'll flip it over and hit this low spot, and that should take out a section in here. So you're always hitting from above to knock out a piece from below. You see that spot. Let me hit there again. Good. I'm working my way down. Still got a little bit of this 90-degree edge to get rid of. Repeat that process. Whoop, you hear that? If it doesn't break initially, I don't know if you've made something that I'm in. I like your channel. Thank you so much. Please like and subscribe and all that stuff. I'm just getting going, and I'm hoping to do a lot. And, you know, people like you coming and watching, asking questions and giving feedback, it's huge for me. It's really huge. I appreciate it. let's say an ancient person had a big piece like that, would they ever say break it in half to make two tools, or would having the ability to make something bigger, they might, yeah, probably. You know, I think having a really big piece is awkward. So I know that one practice that would be common would be to go to site, like a quarry site where they knew this stone existed, and break out some pieces and then work it down something that was still pretty big, but had removed enough of the material that it had lost a lot of its weight. And that's what's called a preform. And that, so I'm getting there. I need to work all the way around the edges and kind of, you know, make this more even and regular. But in a few minutes, this will be a preform. And that would be something you could say, okay, I could take this home. I'm not spending all, you know, some super fine point. I'm walking away with a nice big piece that doesn't have a lot of extra on it, so it's not too heavy to carry. But generally, you know, bigger is better if you're talking raw material. You know, you want to leave yourself more rather than less, because you can't put the pieces back on. I hope I answered your question. Woo, there's a nice big flake. Look at that. That's big enough. That's certainly big enough to make a nice big arrowhead out of. So I'll say. It's already more regular. In fact, this isn't unlike some of the earliest tools. This would be known as a hand axe. So some of these have been found in Africa, going way back. Just a really big chopping tool. Yeah, ancient economics. That is cool. You should look into like some of the trade routes employed by Native Americans that they've figured out via archaeology. They're very extensive. Probably among groups of people that, you know, end to end never met each other. Pardon, might do like sculptures, art, stones. Yeah, people. If I understand what you're asking, some people do art pieces by flint knapping. You know, I try to make functional things that are in line with what we know from history and prehistory. But there are people that make crazy elaborate pieces, you know, by flint knapping. Is that you, Carol? I think it is. Aztec piece of jewelry. Wow. I don't doubt it. I mean, the Aztecs like legitimately had an empire. It was huge. And so they could bring things to the capital from all the way at the edges of their empire. So I imagine they had access to all kinds of amazing materials. Welcome back, Carol. Good to see you. Okay. Nice big piece. This is getting toward the preform stage. It's still, I've got to sort of get more regular. This is still kind of funky in here, but the top, you know, it's already, that edge has already been brought to the center line, so there's places to hit this whole edge. Just need to make it a little bit more regular, a little bit smaller, and then that would be the kind of thing that would be like, okay, I'm going to stop there and take it from the quarry site, bring it back home for later, or bring it to trade. Let's see. Okay. All right. Do I use copper because steel would spark? No. Steel would spark. You've heard of flint and steel. But the spark wouldn't be a problem. And ask me about flint and steel if you want to. But really the reason for copper is that it's soft. Can you see how like dimpled this gets? That's what we want to happen in super slow motion. When this comes down and makes a hit, we want it to kind of grab the surface a little bit. And that way it grabs and that force gets pushed into the stone to make a longer flake. The billet is, that's what this is, a billet. If it's too hard like steel, it's gonna just kind of hit, crush, and go through. There's such a thing as the billet being too hard. So that's one reason why antler is so good. It's hard and strong, right? But it does grab the edge a little bit. It even bends, you know, a bit. You can't see it happen, but it bends and then flexes back into the piece. So it's possible to have a billet that's too hard. And that's why we don't use steel. You could use steel, but what you'd run into, you'd crush the edge along and not produce long flakes. And if you don't produce long flakes, they get toward, if this is the center of the piece, you want flakes coming in and getting to or past the center. and you'd end up with a lot of short flakes just crushing the edge, and you'd end up with these big, fat, chunky things. Don't really look like blades or points. It's a good question. I like that. That's a very good question. Oh yeah, so you're asking about the abrader. So in part, yes, this is making it less sharp. Now, is that because I don't want to cut myself on it? Yeah, it has that effect. It helps with that, but that's not the prime reason I'm doing it. The primary reason I'm doing it is to make a fresh, when I've knocked a piece off, it leaves behind a very sharp edge. And the problem with that sharp edge is when I go to hit it, it could just crush and absorb the energy and just break and crush, which will stop the flake from traveling and being nice and long. What I'm doing when I abrade is I'm blunting the edge in order to make it stronger. And if the edge is stronger, when I hit it, that force will carry through and I'll get a longer flake. So this preparation is actually very important for producing a thin blade like what you typically want to do. So this is making it more blunt and stronger. And you always hit below the center line. If we look at it like this, and you picture a line cutting through the middle, see this point right here? Well below the center line. So this is a likely place for me to hit next. So you make it blunt, you make sure it's below the center line, and then it will take off a flake below. In fact, we could try a little experiment. I've got a grease pencil here somewhere. I can find it in the next minute because I don't want you to wait around. Oh, it was here somewhere. Sometimes I like, I'll show you where I'm going to hit and where I expect the flake to come off. But I would need that grease pencil for this to do it, and I'm not sure where it got off to. Oh, I have one. Hold on. Here it is. Got it. Okay. So we're going to hit on this low spot because it's below the center line. And I'm going to hit right in there. Okay? That's going to transfer the force as a cone. But because there's only stone on this side of the cone, it will make a flake down here. And I'm going to guess that it's going to come out like this and maybe go this direction. I'm going to guess it's going to make a flake about like that. If I'm using words that don't make sense to you, just ask me. There's zero shame in that. I forget, to whom I'm speaking, and if I'm saying things that don't really make sense. But I'm happy to put it in other language, okay? So I'm going to try and hit where that dot is in the hopes of making a flake that comes off down here. Everybody ready? This will be the one where I break the thing in half, right? No. No, it's still pretty big and chunky, so hopefully that won't happen. But I'm going to braid a little bit more because now I really want this to work. And I just want to make sure that this, so I'm going to be from above, right? Boom. I want to make sure that this can clear these high spots on our side because they'll mess me up. But there's plenty of room in here to hit that point, that dot right there clearly. Hopefully I get a nice flake in one piece would be great because then I could put it back and show. I'm going to do a few like dry hits. See, I really want this one to work, so I'm going to kind of get a feel for it. And then I'm going to move the stone closer, you know, because I've repeated this. I've kind of got a feel for it now, muscle memory. I'm going to move the piece closer. Boom. I hit a little off to the side. I hit up here. Let me try again. My platform is still there. I missed. All right, I'm going to concentrate. Got it. The flake kind of crushed that second one. See, my drawing was here. You can still see this end and down here. So it pretty much did, you know, I missed the first time. I totally confess to that. But the second time I hit the right spot and it took out those pieces right where we expected. So that's how this works. You need to prepare your it's the place where you hit is form. You need to prepare your platform and look down below where it's going to go, see if you're going to run into any problems, and then make that hit in the hopes of making the piece thinner and to the shape you want. I have a problem right here, right there. That's called a step fracture. At some point I made a flake by hitting here, but the force carried in and then immediately stopped. And now I've got that step. The reason that's a problem is if I flip this over and try to hit in that same spot, the force is going to travel up to this hard line. It'll stop again and just make that step deeper. So now I've got an issue. I've got to get rid of that at some point because this is going to prevent me from thinning out the piece in this area. I like that. Professor. So how do I do that? Well, eventually what I'm going to have to do is drive a big flake from this side until I knock that off. But it's a long way to go right now. I might also be able to hit a flake from this end and take that piece off. Let me take a look at that. Oh. So the force likes to travel along ridges. Can you see this ridge? That's got potential. I could potentially hit here to take a long flake off here to fix my problem here. Should we do it? You want to go for it? Chances of success are about, my chances of success. That's a long flake. I'd say 20%. I'll draw a line. I'll draw a line where I think the flake will go. And I'll have to hit here. Okay. If I hit there, everything goes according to plan. I take off that flake you see in white, which gets rid of my problem, which is here. That step. You know, it kind of does follow the path of least resistance. You're right, it's negative. I think you're speaking about why it would just make this worse. I think what happens is the force goes in, it meets resistance right there and says, I don't have enough to get through beyond this mass, this sudden increase in mass, and it exits right there. So I think that the step creates a very sudden increase in mass. The force can't get past, and so it just breaks right there again. I think. I should ask someone about that because I'm not 100% positive. What do you think? We going for it? I mean, there's a lot of physics involved here, you know? I'm not a scientist, but there's no doubt that what I'm doing here is all about physics. All right. No Sage says we're doing it. So does Biff. Let's do this thing. All right. I think I'm going to take the biggest bopper. Or do I want to risk it on the antler? No. We'll go with this. It's a little wobbly. I don't know if I trust it. Okay. Can you see? Hopefully you can see. All right. I need to hit right there. Oh, I'm going to abrade. That edge should be pretty strong, but I'm still going to abrade. The abrading also helps get rid of the fine edges in other places, which can provide a place for the force to dissipate. So if it's basically the rock can vibrate. And if it can vibrate, we lose our force. Whereas if we compact it and make it everywhere, that force will travel and create the longer flake. So it's going to want to travel along this. I'm going to also try to line up my hit in the direction of my problem, my step fracture right there. So I'm actually going to keep that in mind. I'm actually going to put a pad under my leg. I'm going to try to hit toward that. And I've got to make sure it's all well supported or I will break it. So I'm going to stretch out my leg. That's what I'm hitting toward right there. All right. All right, not enough force. Same spot, more force. Oh. This is what I was talking about. So I just crushed the edge. Oh, I did get a little flake coming down here. See that? And it helped my problem a little bit. It broke out a little bit right in here. My problem got a little better. About half of it got better. Now my center line, though, is no longer, my platform is no longer below center line. So if I were to hit this again, I stand a good chance of breaking the whole thing. So I made my problem a little bit better, didn't get rid of the whole thing, but I don't want to hit that same spot again until I've modified where that platform is. So, partial success. The good news is I didn't break everything in half. And I made my situation a little bit. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, exactly. That's that. I can't exactly control where it goes, but I've got a number of things that will strongly influence where it goes. Showed you that before I did it. I just totally fixed a problem on the backside. I had the same thing going on. A step right here. I hit from the other side and it totally brought it all down to one level. Oh, I wish I'd showed you that. Oh well, next time. So I'll have another chance to go after the problem I was just working on. As the whole thing gets smaller, I'll have less far to go to clear up the problem. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a very interesting puzzle in that way. You know, if this was a piece of wood or something, you know, I have any number of tools to take wood away from where I want. Easy. No problem. But I suppose I could use a diamond saw, but that kind of defeats the purpose. Hey, is the connection pretty good? Am I laggy, or is this pretty good? Because I just set up an Ethernet cable out here in the hopes of making this better. And I'm hoping it is. It's a little laggy for you, but you're not in a great spot. Okay. This is where we're at. I'm going to start working on the profile a little bit, just to make it more of a big teardrop shape. Just because most tools are more like that shape. Maybe a little laggy every now and then. Okay, thank you, Joseph. I mean, hopefully Ethernet cable helps, but it's running like 150 feet, so there might be a limit to how much that can help. Getting thinner. Okay. I'll take that. Yeah. A little bit more regular in shape. Let's see, what am I going for? Something like that. Oh yeah. Yep, that's exactly right. Because I need to have the center line. I always need to hit when it's below. So I'll flip it over, for example, make a lot of small hits, which takes off flakes on the lower side, so that when I flip it over, this is now all low. And I abrade. And now I can basically hit anywhere on this side. But I've got a few weird spots, so I'm sort of hopping around a little to try and make it a little bit more regular. get rid of those weird spots. And then I don't have to worry about them. Yeah. I'm also getting closer to my problem spot. It's now all the way, it's very close to this edge now. It could be that I continue making chips so that this becomes the edge, then I flip it over and just knock it away. That's possible. But that's pretty much my big problem. Oh, I've got a little bit of crushing up here. Those aren't super deep, so I'm not very worried about them. Okay. Oh, yeah. All right, I got a knife I'll show you. Put it back where it goes. If I can figure that out. Oh, it's two pieces. Come here. Come here. Okay. So I hit from the other side here, and it took off this flake. You can see the flake scar. What type of stone is that? Dacite. D-A-C-I-T-E, dacite. You can get it online at knapping.com or lithics.com, a bunch of other places. Do you ever focus on one spot, flipping it over back and forth before moving to another spot? Or does that cause issues with the geometry? That is, do you have to do it all around before flipping? Yeah, sometimes I do focus on one spot, especially if it's problematic. But literally, once you've gotten rid of any big problems or any irregular pieces of mass, then you do work on, one side at a time pretty much. So the answer is both. But yes, sometimes I do focus on one spot if it's particularly problematic. This is starting to look better. Something I haven't told you folks yet is that you can never hit into a concave area. If it's scooped out low, if it was like really concave on the underside and I hit a flake, it would go into that scooped area and then immediately break and create a step or a hinge fracture that would mess me up. So the surfaces always need to be slightly convex. And at present, this one's a little, especially down here. It's more convex up here. And this side is pretty much nicely convex everywhere. But the flakes won't they won't travel at all if you hit into a concave area. And they'll travel the best if it's slightly convex like that. It's called a lenticular cross section. You always want, that's ideal, is to have a lenticular cross section. Yeah, the big flakes are super satisfying. Sometimes you can get them to travel all the way across, and it's like, yes. All right. Oh, that's a good one. Let me put that one back for you. Ah, can't get my fingers out of the way. Yeah. That one did get all the way across. Boop. Yeah. So you're asking, if you have a big step issue, could you use a stone to grind it away and continue? Yes. Yes, you can. I didn't know that very recently, or in my mind, it was like cheating. But interestingly, archaeologists have found it's of legitimate, ancient artifacts where they can see that the original makers did exactly that. So it's a totally, as far as I'm concerned now, it's a totally legit technique. It's labor intensive. You've got a bit of a step right here. I could take the abrader and work it down. And once that was smooth, then it would behave as if that step was never there. So yes, absolutely, that's a good observation, and it is absolutely something you can. It's something I do. I only started doing it recently because I thought it was cheating, but now I no longer think it's cheating, and I do it sometimes. Oh yeah, they're sharp enough for sure. Were you signed on when I did the leather cutting test last night? So this is the flake I just knocked off just a second ago. It's like a razor. I'm not going to try and shave with it, but what I will do is cut that leather. See how thick that is? It's like belt leather, really thick. Cut through it like nothing. Super sharp. Actually, I'll arm hair. I won't do my face, but I'll try arm hair. All right, ready? You asked for it, right? I aim to please on my channel. Let's see. Yeah, it's starting to work. Did it work? A little. I don't have super hairy arms, so. Yeah, I got a little bald patch right there. That was a little scary. Let's see. Oh, you could use abrasion to just mask the issue, yeah? But you can also use it to continue working. Still got that remnant of that step right there, but it's getting so close to the edge. Let's see, if I take off a little in front of. Okay. Braid. All right. So there's my problem, right? That step. I'm actually going to hit, now, contrary to what I told you, I'm going to hit up here, but I'm going to direct it this way. And basically you can think of that as getting underneath that. It's a little risky, but I'm going to have a hard coming from the opposite end because this is already pretty smooth, pretty flat. There isn't a lot of mass to carry a long flake all the way to here. It would have to be the full length. So I'm going to try to take it off by hitting here and directing it that way. Lots of abrading. Okay, here we go. No guts, no glory. Got it. And I even have the flake to prove it. Okay. A little bit missing. So that, there's a little piece missing, but here was my problem. And I hit here. And I took that off. So now I no longer have a step fraction here. In fact, this whole side is now just fine for working on. There's no step. I still have this little weirdness here where I started to do the grinding. Kind of the same situation. Real close to the edge. I'll keep going and just see how I want to tackle that. I'll probably have to wrap it up in a few minutes. But I really appreciate everybody hanging in there. Yeah, there's this like whole like sub-theme going on that I can't even follow. I hope it's all in good fun, whatever it is, because I'm unable to keep up. So this is getting toward that preform stage, really. The flint knappers might have taken enough time at the quarry site to make something like this. So it's not really a tool in itself, though you could use it, stuff. But now it's like usable, doesn't have any problems. We can see that there aren't any like weird inclusions or weak spots in the rock. That can happen, and you don't see them until you get in. So we've got this fairly light thing. We know it's all good. It's nicely started. You take this, or you make 12 of these, right? And you take them home. You trade 3 of them. You give 2 of them away. You've got a bunch to use later on. It's bothering me that it's not symmetrical down there at the bottom. So I'm just going to take a little bit more off from this side. Doesn't need to be. There's no reason. It's just I want it to be. I just want it to be symmetrical. Not going to do anything risky to make it symmetrical. Just going to take some little chips off. Here we go. Nice dacite preform. Ready to be made into a knife, spear point, all kinds of stuff. Finish this piece on this stream? Yeah, probably. Not today, but I've been doing this regularly. I don't really have a schedule yet, but it's typically around the same time that this one started. And this is a nice piece to put a girl on it. What, on the stream? Or, huh? Sorry, I don't know what you mean. The temptation, one last hit, you know? But that's exactly how you break these. So I'm going to call this good for the evening. Dacite preform. Still got a lot of wit. But now that it doesn't have any bad step fractures. Well, except for right there, but that's so close to the edge, I'll be able to deal with that. But pretty much no bad step fractures. Lenticular cross section to carry some nice long flakes when I come back to it. Hopefully get it nice and thin for being a knife blade or a spear point. Well, thank you, Joseph, and thank you for everybody else tuning in. I appreciate you listening and watching and keeping me company while I'm on this. I'm going to be doing this regularly. I'm also starting to make some longer form videos. I just made like my first in a long time, about a week and a half ago. It's about making an Oldowan chopper. These are stone tools that were found in Africa that are almost 3 million years old. 3 million years old. And I show that process. Watch me tonight. It's going to look really familiar. It's going to be all the same principles, but it's for making a much simpler tool. It's just real basic chopping. And so please go check that out. Share it. Subscribe. Like, all that stuff. Really helpful. I appreciate it greatly. I appreciate your enthusiasm, Kona. I don't really know what you're talking about, but I appreciate the enthusiasm. Wishing you all a good night. And I'm Doug North, and please tune in again. Yeah, see you next time, Joseph. Oh, I'll look it up, Kona. Sorry, I'm out of the loop. I'm the guy who makes stone tools, so I'm not up with all the latest memes and stuff, but I'll check it out. Good night, No Sage. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. And put a girl on. That was for you, Kona. Hopefully I just didn't say something terrible. All right. Talk to you later. You all take care. Take care of yourselves. Take care of others. Bye now.